This is WCPO 9 News.
Thanks for joining us for WCPO 9 News. I'm Tanya O'Rourke. Here's a look at some of today's top stories. A shooting in Newport sends a Covington police officer and a suspect to the hospital. It was a little before 6:30 last night. Covington police say someone called them to report a man with a gun. Authorities say the shooting happened during a traffic stop at Isabella Street and Chestnut Way. Kentucky State Police are now handling this investigation. The conditions of the officer and the suspect have not yet been released. Investigators were on the scene for hours Monday night collecting evidence. We will have overnight developments for you on Good Morning Tri-State. It starts at 4:30. A Hamilton County mother is now indicted in the death of her 3-year-old son. Angel Campbell's accused of involuntary manslaughter and endangering children. That boy was found under a bed after a house fire in February. Investigators believe the boy started the fire while playing with a lighter. His grandma was watching him. A neighbor helped pull her out of the apartment. Prosecutor's office tells us the indictment stems from the mom leaving her child with someone who wasn't capable of caring for him. The demolition of the Millennium Hotel in downtown Cincinnati is underway. Crews began tearing it down Monday. The skywalk that connects to the convention center will be the first to go. The whole process should take about 15 months, so into next summer. Elm Street between 5th and 6th Streets will be closed the entire time, so be aware of that. We have more closures on our website, WCPO.com.
Hello everyone, I'm 9 First Warning meteorologist Sherry Hughes. We're going to be in the 40s overnight and more importantly 70s for Tuesday. Lots of sunshine. It's going to be a breezy day. Winds gusting upwards to 30 miles an hour. And we will hold off from the rain until late Tuesday night into early Wednesday. We'll see showers around maybe 10 or 11 to midnight. They'll move out during the early portion of the afternoon. Behind that, some much colder air. Only 50 on Wednesday and 40s for opening day.
I'm Marielle Carbone. Kentucky State Police are investigating an officer-involved shooting here in Newport. The Covington police chief tells us that this is a result of a traffic stop.
This area usually never has any bad commotion going on. I ride around all the time. So.
Christine Barlow was riding her bike near 5th Avenue in Newport when all of a sudden
heard a couple shots going off. And then next thing I know, there was a police officer running this way. All the police officers were coming. And yeah, it was just shooting.
Those shots, gunfire exchanged between a Covington police officer and a suspect.
We're just hoping everything will be okay.
Covington Police Chief Rob Nader says the department got a call about a man with a gun on Scott Street around 6:20 p.m. Officers saw a vehicle matching the description of the suspect's vehicle. That led to a traffic stop here in Newport, where both the suspect and the officer fired shots. Both were hit and taken to UC Hospital. We know the officer was shot in the arm and suffered non-life-threatening injuries.
Keeping my fingers crossed everything is okay.
Nader says Kentucky State Police are investigating.
We don't investigate ourselves in these type of incidents.
It's unclear just how many shots were fired.
I'd rather be at the hospital with him than standing here in front of you. I'd rather him not be at the hospital, put it that way. So yeah, it's a little tough right now.
It's scary, you know. Some people, you never know what's going to happen.
And we do know that the officer shot is a veteran officer. Chief Nader tells us that it's been a few years since the force has had to deal with an officer-involved shooting. Reporting in Newport, I'm Marielle Carbone, WCPO 9 News.
It was difficult at first to do it because, I'm telling strangers what happened.
It has been nearly 37 years since what happened here permanently shaped Roxanne Wagner's life. But after decades of silence and with thousands of miles now separating her from her mother, Wagner is sharing her story on her own terms.
People hear her version or they see clips of her in the courtroom, but they don't see the after effects that it has on everybody else.
Wagner spoke to Netflix when they profiled Couch for their series I Am a Killer. The case became well known in part because Couch allegedly tricked her children and father-in-law into digging the hole for her husband's body, a key part of the story she has since denied.
I want people to know, if anything, she's not the victim in all of this.
Former police chief Tom Stryker was one of the first officers to arrive at the home on West 8th Street that day.
But it was some type of unknown trouble. It was obvious there was a pretty high degree of urgency, a high sense of urgency. when that came out.
A District 3 patrolman at the time, he says he'll never forget the moment Couch admitted what happened.
She eventually says to me, she goes, I know he's dead. She says, I shot him, and I said, it doesn't matter. I said, he could still be alive, let us get somebody here. And I said, do you know where he is? And she goes, yes, I know where he is. And I said, where is he? And she says, you're standing on him.
Psychologist Stuart Bassman says the case likely scarred those directly involved.
It was startling.
And the community around it.
There is a sense that we all want to believe we're safe. But to a great extent, when a crime like this occurs in our hometown, in our community, it's a wake-up call.
Even though I feel safe where I am, I still look over my shoulder.
It is that inescapable feeling and inconsistencies in Couch's story that make Wagner believe her mother should never be freed.
If the parole board is watching or something, I hope they hear this. And I hope they deny her.
Couch is currently serving a life sentence at the State Reformatory for Women in Marysville, Ohio. In Price Hill, Kristen Swilley, WCPO 9 News.
The head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and President Biden are asking Americans to stick with the pandemic precautions just a little while longer. Monday, officials announced that the U.S. has surpassed 30 million cases of COVID-19, and parts of the country are seeing a steady rise of cases. The CDC director says the latest reports have her feeling an impending doom.
We are working closely with the states. I will be speaking with the governors tomorrow to try and reinforce the need for these for current restrictions to not open up. I think what we do with masking will really depend on where we are 40 days from now.
According to the CDC, about 143 million vaccine doses have been administered in the United States.
This case is not about all police. This case is about Mr. Derek Chauvin.
That Derek Chauvin did exactly what he had been trained to do over the course of his 19-year career.
The trial for former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin began today. Chauvin is charged with second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter in the death of George Floyd last May. Chauvin has pleaded not guilty. On Monday, the U.S. military honored the American service members who lost their lives during the conflict in Vietnam. The ceremony recognized National Vietnam War Veterans Day. On March 29, 1973, the last American ground troops left the country, ending U.S. involvement in the conflict. More than 58,000 Americans died in the war. Over 1,200 Americans are still unaccounted for. Monday's events commemorating the day were largely held online due to the pandemic.
It's no secret this country has an infrastructure problem. Roads, bridges, water lines. The American Society of Civil Engineers recently gave the U.S. a grade of C- for our infrastructure. Casey Dinges is with the group.
All parts of the country have issues. Red states, blue states, purple states.
Well, this week, President Biden is expected to reveal his idea for a massive infrastructure plan, tentatively scheduled for release on Wednesday in Pittsburgh. And while the exact details are not out yet, we know it will likely be in the trillions and drastically impact everything from your commute to your child's education.
But you may be wondering, where will the money come from for this multi-trillion-dollar spending package, especially after the country just spent over $1 trillion on stimulus checks? The answer is one word: taxes.
America hasn't had a significant tax increase since 1993. President Biden has promised no new taxes for anyone making under $400,000 a year. White House officials have said couples earning at least a combined income of $400,000 could see an increased rate, though. Taxes for those Americans could go up 2 to 3%. Additionally, corporations and big businesses could be set for an increased tax bill too. Early indications suggest they could be raised 7 to 10%. So how will this impact you? William McBride is an economist with the Tax Foundation and says you don't have to be CEO of a company or make six figures to potentially feel the impact. If the company you work for has to pay more taxes, it could be passed on to you.
It's going to put pressure on the ability of employers to provide raises. It's going to put pressure on the ability of employers to hire, to promote.
That argument is what most Republicans will argue when the debate begins on Capitol Hill. Democrats are already out saying that Wall Street has soared this pandemic and big business can afford it. One thing is clear, though, fixing that pothole or adding that train route will be costly, and the fight to raise taxes difficult for President Biden. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
Many independent venues across the country had to close during the COVID crisis. Now there's economic relief available to help reopen their doors.
This is how we control the sound that comes from the stage.
Cervantes Masterpiece Ballroom is known for its live shows.
So they get the full band instead of just the trio.
But since the COVID crisis started, this independent live music venue has gone from standing room only to operating at 10% capacity with social distance shows.
We are hosting seated shows these days. This is not normally what you would see in Cervantes.
Owner Duncan Goodman is looking to reopen at full capacity after being shut down for more than a year.
That's the full band also this time.
And having to cut most of his staff to survive during the pandemic.
Deferred everything that we could, honestly. And I mean, just cash flow wise, in order to make sure we have money in the bank.
Goodman is part of the National Independent Venue Association, a group with a mission to secure funding for venues like Cervantes.
They fought for us, fought for independent venues until the bill was finally passed.
That bill, known as the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, was recently signed into law as part of the second COVID-19 relief bill. It allocates $16 billion in federal emergency relief through the Small Business Administration to venues that have been hit hard.
Those are the industries that we're here to support. They've been devastated by revenue loss, and that's exactly what this program hopes to help them restore and open up.
Barb Carson is with the SBA and says venues across the country are eligible for this money. She says the criteria is complex, but for those that qualify, this program can provide a single independent venue up to $10 million.
I wish it were easy to join a federal program, but it's not, and it's for good cause. We need to have a program that's fair to ensure that people who are not eligible don't get the funds, because it's going to go fast.
For Duncan, this program is a lifeline.
Float Like a Buffalo is going to be pretty dead.
Helping his business get back to standing room only.
This grant is instrumental in helping this industry to survive and saving a lot of these independent venues, including Cervantes.
I'm Kai Beach reporting.
Americans owe almost $2 trillion in student debt. But the latest stimulus bill included some provisions that can clear a path for student loan forgiveness.
I graduated with about $132,000 in student debt.
$132,000 in debt. It's a crushing number, but it's how much Jashira Maduro owed when she got her diploma.
It's December when the grace period was done. It was like, all right, here's your bill. And it was so large. It was, over $1,000. It was like $1,300. And I can't get an apartment, the first job coming out of graduation was definitely not going to cover that.
The majority of Jashira's loans were private, but she still had $30,000 in federal debt. The weight of those loans and payments can be overwhelming for some. But there's a glimmer of hope coming.
The primary benefit of this latest piece of legislation is that any form of student loan forgiveness coming down the pike, at least from the federal government, would be considered tax-free.
This is Andrew Pentis, an advisor with Student Loan Hero. He's talking about a piece of the latest COVID stimulus bill, the American Recovery Act. Right now, there are a few ways to have federal student loans forgiven. Years spent working in public service, working as a teacher in some states, or if you enroll in an income-driven repayment plan, can all have your student loans disappear. Almost. You do have to pay the taxes on the amount forgiven.
A borrower with a $50,000 income who would receive $10,000 worth of forgiveness would have had to pay $2,200 in taxes.
That number can get quite a bit higher with larger amounts of debt forgiven. Today, that number would be a lot different.
If you qualify for a student loan discharge, whether because you're a teacher or because you're on an income-driven repayment plan, or perhaps even because the Biden administration or Congress passes a major forgiveness proposal, you won't have to worry about treating that as income tax and therefore increasing your income tax bill.
And that's a big deal, especially to people like Jashira.
Even with relief and forgiveness, if it didn't have this tax, kind of this extra tax benefit now, they would be hit with another burden and maybe have to take a loan just to pay out the taxes. And then you're just kind of in this vicious cycle.
And the Biden administration has already forgiven $1 billion in loans for 73,000 borrowers who were defrauded by their institutions. None of them will pay taxes on that money. Borrowers like Jashira aren't overly hopeful for full forgiveness from their debt from Washington, but if any comes, they won't have to pay the tax man back a dime. I'm Bo Evans reporting.
Dick's Sporting Goods chain is launching a new store concept with what it calls an experiential store in New York. Dick's House of Sport features a rock climbing wall, indoor wellness spaces, and an outdoor field for sporting events. The company says customers at the location will get a hands-on shopping experience with their products, as well as help from fitness experts. The new store comes on top of a successful quarter for Dick's, which took in $3.13 billion in revenue. Southwest plans to beef up its 737 MAX fleet. The airline announced plans Monday to buy 100 of the planes. The deal includes options to buy 155 more. It's a major vote of confidence for the 737, which was grounded for close to 2 years after 2 of the planes crashed, killing 346 people. Southwest Airlines only flies airplanes in the 737 family. It plans to replace older models with the new MAX version.
Hello everyone, I'm 9 First Morning meteorologist Sherry Hughes. Overnight clear tonight with a low of 42 degrees. That's above normal. We start in the upper 30s at 8 a.m. and then we'll see those temperatures near 60 by noon. Lots of sunshine, but it's going to be breezy with winds out of the south gusting upwards to 30 miles an hour. The high temperature though around 70, and we are tracking the potential for some showers. We're sunny all day long, but by about maybe 10 or 11 near the midnight hour we see some rain coming in with a cold front, and that rain will last through the overnight, pushing out during the early portion of the afternoon on Wednesday. You're going to feel a big difference too. It will be a cooler day with highs only around 50 on Wednesday. For opening day at the Reds with the Cardinals, it's going to be even colder. Those temperatures topping out only near 40 degrees.
Many people who emigrate to this country do so dreaming of a better life. And then there are the dreamers, children who came to this country without legal permission and who remain undocumented. The House of Representatives recently passed a new Dreamers bill that could finally clear up their immigration status. While dreamers have hope for this bill, it faces a tough road in the Senate. For 20-year-old Yatsiri Cruz,
I was brought to the United States when I was 9 months old.
America is home.
Most of us dreamers came to the United States as children, not even knowing, and this is all we know.
Cruz, who goes to college and works as a paralegal, is one of 2 million people living in the country and legally allowed to work, known as dreamers.
We're citizens without the title. We're citizens without the title, without the benefits, without being recognized.
The name Dreamers comes from the Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors, or DREAM Act of 2001. In the 20 years since, there have been 11 versions of the bill introduced in Congress. None have become law. President Obama, through an executive action, allowed Dreamers to apply for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA. But it's just that, deferred action, and offers no pathway to citizenship. But now, there's hope for change.
It's not just numbers, it's actual people that this is affecting.
Irvin Gonzalez is with CASA, an immigration advocacy organization.
We provide services and community organizing.
The House of Representatives recently passed a new Dreamers bill that could finally give some clarity to their immigration status. It now heads to the Senate, where it faces an uphill battle.
We're very happy to see the first step pass and waiting for the full act to pass. So now it's to continue to keep that pressure. The White House, the Senate was all one because of these promises you made for the immigrant community. So it's now to uphold and keep those promises that you made.
To 20-year-old Yatsiri Cruz.
We have hope. We have hope.
That means speaking out and sharing her story publicly.
I think we give our full and 100% to this country and to our people, our community.
In the hopes of a chance to stay. In York, Pennsylvania, I'm Maya Rodriguez.
When it comes to the COVID-19 vaccines, there's hesitancy among the Spanish-speaking population. A recent Kaiser Family Foundation poll found more than half of Latino and Hispanic adults are in no rush to get the vaccine.
We have the mission to communicate to our people.
Some experts believe this has to do with understanding the information that's out there.
Hispanic Latino communities may listen better or will trust a scientist, a professional, a physician, or myself that have been working in this area, and that also is a Latino.
6 Spanish-speaking staff members from the College of Public Health at the University of South Florida are hosting conversations over Zoom and Facebook Live completely in Spanish. Everyone is invited to listen in and learn more about getting vaccinated.
We want to really emphasize both their safety and efficacy, and sort of alleviate some of those tensions and fears that people are experiencing.
One of their conversations is posted to Facebook. Just visit the USF College of Public Health page to watch.